When silence feels safer than truth, choosing integrity can feel risky. But every honest step we take not only brings us back to ourselves, it also leaves a trail for someone else to follow. Welcome to Spiritual Geography. I'm Joni Miller. There are iconic photos of resistance. The man standing in front of tanks during the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989. Youth placing daisies in barrels of National Guardsmen's rifles in the 1960s. And a sea of protesters walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma in 1965 to meet heavy police presence and attacks. We sometimes think that this is what resistance looks like, requiring great courage, literally standing in front of tanks and guns. I don't know if I'd have that kind of bravery. I've often wondered, if I were truly tested, would I stand firm or would I shrink back? I know that in smaller moments, when the risks were low, there have been times I stayed silent and betrayed my own values. I didn't sell my soul per se, but I stepped off the trail I meant to follow. We are living in a moment in our country when many people are quietly rethinking beliefs, affiliations, and loyalties they once felt certain about. That quiet reflection, often hidden from view, can lead to small acts of bravery that, step by step, grow into something larger. For example, last week I read an article about a political operative who left his job and his political party after years of tiny compromises tapping at his conscience. He didn't abandon his values all at once. The descent was gradual, and so was the awakening. Many of us, myself included, hesitate to take a stand for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it feels scary. Sometimes we're conflict avoidant. Sometimes we fear alienating our community or risking our jobs and the stability that supports the people we love. And for some, the stakes are even higher. Speaking up can lead to harassment, threats, or violence toward themselves or those they care about. From the outside, it's easy to wonder, how could they? Why didn't they speak up sooner? But the truth is, none of us know what we would do if we were in their shoes. We're not living their lives with their obligations, their history, and their fears. We like to imagine the lines are bright and obvious, that the devil went down to Georgia looking for a soul to steal, and that those on the other side must have signed on the dotted line. But in real life, the bargain is rarely that straightforward. Getting off track is easier than we think. We rarely cross a grand moral line in a single moment. It happens slowly, almost imperceptibly, through a series of tiny justifications. This isn't worth the fight. It's not my place. I'll speak up next time. Each choice seems small, even understandable in context. We want to keep the peace. We want to belong. But over time, those small silences and concessions pull us off the path we meant to follow. Psychologists call this moral disengagement, a quiet loosening of our inner compass, one rationalization at a time. Awakening usually doesn't happen in a flash either. It begins quietly, a discomfort we can't ignore, a comment that lands differently than it used to. A moment when we realize we no longer recognize the beliefs we're defending, or the version of ourselves who once defended them. Transformation often begins with a whisper. This doesn't feel right anymore. One honest moment leads to another, and gradually we find our footing again. And just as we wandered off the path one small step at a time, the return often happens step by step too, not with grand declarations or dramatic scenes, but with simple acts of integrity that almost no one notices. It might sound like, I don't feel right about this anymore, or let me check the facts before I repeat this. It might be choosing not to laugh at a cruel remark, or letting silence sit instead of agreeing just to smooth things over. At first, these moments feel small, maybe even too small to matter. But the soul recognizes them. Our steps land more firmly. The inner compass starts pointing us back toward what we knew was true. I doubt the people in those iconic images of resistance blazed their trail in a single heroic stride. There were likely smaller moments when they considered the dangers and weighed the costs. Those moments added up until the stakes of standing up and speaking out became more important than any risks. Just as small compromises can pull us off the trail, small acts of integrity can rebuild it. Even if our act seems minor or our voice trembles, if we're aligned with the values that feel truer and more authentic to us, the trail becomes visible and others can see it. Because we're never the only ones in the room who feel the tension. There is always someone else wondering if they're the only person who sees what's happening or who questions it. In that sense, our actions don't necessarily change what we're fighting against, at least not right away. But our actions do change the bystanders, the people who've been sitting in that silent place of discomfort. Each choice is a signal to others of what's possible. We move a few feet at a time. We choose the next right step and then the one after that. A path not just for us, but one someone else can follow too. And maybe you hear this and think, I haven't left my path. I haven't betrayed what I believe in. And if that's you, then your role is just as important. If you are still on the trail, remember that there are those who need you to keep marking it. Not with grand speeches or moral superiority, but in the ways that can be seen and felt. In what you speak up for, what you refuse to normalize, and what you support with your time, your voice, and your resources. When we choose the path of love, step by ordinary step, we're not just finding our way back. We're clearing a way for others to join us. We need people who haven't strayed to stay visible, not to shame those who wandered, but to welcome them back. The people in those iconic images didn't wait for permission or for the crowd to move first. They became visible in a moment that demanded it, not because they felt fearless, but because the cost of silence had grown too high. Today, our country faces its own moment of choosing. And while not all of us will be called to stand in front of tanks or march across bridges, we are called to take the small, visible steps that make courage contagious again. Because the truth is this: we need all of us on this trail, those returning, those steady, and those still unsure. Every step toward integrity creates more of the path beneath our feet. One small, courageous step at a time, we can clear a trail others can trust. A trail that leads us back to one another. A trail that leads us back to love. We don't understand the mysteries of the universe, but we can grow more love. Love for ourselves, love for others, and love for the infinite mystery that lays beyond our understanding. Thank you for tuning in.